Hello everyone, and thank you for coming to my channel, The Virginia Bushcrafter. Now, my channel is about bushcrafting, prepping, and survival skills. And we know that entails a lot. Now, one of the things about bushcrafting, prepping, and survival skills, it is a journey and not a destination. And that is because there is continuous learning. Now, some time ago, I learned about the 5 C's of bushcrafting, or if you want to use the 5 C's of the wilderness. And of those 5 C's are cutting, having a cutting tool, combustion, something to start a fire with, cordage, to make out of knots, help build a shelter, container, that is something to put all of your supplies in, or you can look at it as specifically a canteen. And the last one is coverage, something to put over you, something to make a shelter out of. Now those 5 items they're very lengthy, but the more I do bushcrafting, the more I learn. And I have learned there is another set of C's. And these C's come from Dave Canterbury. Now, the first C of the second group is a candle. Now, a candle can actually be a candle in and of itself, but it also speaks to light, a flashlight. Anything that will provide you light, we put that into the candle category. The next one is cloth. Now the cloth can be a shamag, it can be a bandana, it can be part of your clothing. It can serve as first aid, it can serve as a fire starter, they can even serve as making a pillow. The next C is cargo tape, which for cargo tape, I use Gorilla Tape. The Gorilla Tape can be used as tinder. It can be used to make repairs on your shelter, even on your clothing. The next one, something that is very, very important, is a compass. A compass to keep you going in a safe direction. You can always find your way by properly utilizing a compass. And the last item is a canvas needle. So again, guys, what we have found out, not only is there just 5 C's to bushcrafting, we can go a step further and say there are 10 C's to bushcrafting. So again, we have a cutting, we have combustion, we have cordage, we have a container, we have cover, a candle, cloth, cargo tape, compass, and a canvas needle. But tonight, I am going to focus on cutting tools. Now, I am going to focus on what works for me and what I would suggest to someone. So the first cutting tool that I'm going to speak of is a sportsman hatchet. Now guys, the sportsman's hatchet that I prefer is an S-wing. Now, I prefer this S-wing because it is all metal. And one of the things that will be alleviated is the head from ever becoming loose. This is a tubular tool. Now, this hatchet is approximately 13 inches. And I like this hatchet because it is portable and is very good for splitting medium and small logs. Now, we know when we're bushcrafting, we must process a fair amount of wood. So this hatchet has done that for me. I have fully utilized it. And again, I like it because it's small. I can toss it into my rucksack or backpack, and it's very good for splitting medium and small large. Now, another thing about a hatchet is that you can use it to process game. You know, cleaving game or splitting the pelvis of a big animal. You know, a hatchet will do that for you. Place the bit, on a bone that you want to cut through, and use another heavy tool to cleave through, striking the back of the axe, or the hatchet in this case. Another good thing, I think why a hatchet is so important, it is because you can use it to make and pound tent stakes. Now, I would not suggest pounding metal against metal. If I am going to make tent stakes, I am going to use wood. So you can do that by using this hatchet to debark and sharpen the tip of wood and then hammering it into the ground. So that is another great feature of using a hatchet. One of the most important features of it is keeping a fire going. Chop off some branches and split fairly thick branches, chopping bits off of a large log. So you can just split the logs, remove the branches, and this will keep your fire going. And also, this can be used as a self-defense tool. But I think one of the best things is that debarking trees. You come in at an angle, using it in a lightweight, quick manner to cover a big area of the tree. So you're basically chopping in the form of a V. So that is one way of debarking a tree as well as chopping the tree. So again, come in at an angle, using its lightweight to quickly cover a big area of the tree. Now, some people have become so proficient that they will use a hatchet in competition as a throwing hatchet. Now, another thing that I use this hatchet for is clearing brush. Make quick use of overgrown vegetation and overextended branches, but the bit, it must be sharp. So that's another good feature. And also, again, I can use this as a hammer on wood when I am making a heat retention wall. When I build a fire and I make a retention wall, a heat retention wall, I can use this as a hammer. Another thing that you can do with this hatchet is make kindling. Yes, if you properly use this hatchet, you can actually make kindling. And we know kindling is necessary once you have your tinder lit. And another thing, when you become proficient with a hatchet, you can also do wood carving. You can actually make spoons, bowls, notches, that you should be able to do any and everything that is required of you in the bush. So again, when I go into the bush, as a cutting tool, I am going to take a hatchet. Now, if I don't take a hatchet with me, well, the reason I like this hatchet because of the weight. It's not very heavy, but it does its job, and it's balanced very well. Now, if you're not going to take a hatchet into the bush with you, you still must have a chopping tool. Now, you may prefer something as a machete. Machetes are very good. I prefer a kukri machete. This is a machete that has a 12.6-inch blade, and it can be used for chopping and all the items that I just mentioned. So, cutting tools are very important in the bush, and these are known as chopping tools. This is one of the 3 tools that I suggest you carry into the bush. Now, the next cutting tool that I'm going to speak on is a knife. So guys, the knife is the second cutting tool. I myself prefer a large knife. A large knife is any knife that is 7 inches to 10 inches in length. A medium knife is any knife that is 5 to 7 inches, and a small knife is any knife that is less than 5 inches. But in the bush, along with a chopping tool, I prefer a 10-inch kukri knife. This is my preference. This is what works best for me. Now, the knife is very good to start a fire. You can use this knife, the spine of it, as a striker on your ferrocerium rod, or for making a bow drill. You can use the point or the edge to make the divots in the bow drill, or you can even strike the blade against a rock to assist you in starting a fire. So a knife is very important. This knife also can be used for cutting and slicing. I have chopped vegetables with this knife, and this knife will get anything out of the way. I also have used this knife for digging. If you don't have a shovel, a knife can dig out roots. It can create a pit to dispose of water or waste, and you can carve signals into the dirt. So again, this knife has served me when I didn't have a shovel. I was able to dig out roots, create a trench for water, or even to dispose of waste, and carve signals into the dirt. This knife also serves as a very well tool to split wood. You can baton this into wood. I've used this up wood as large as 8 or 9 inches in diameter because the blade itself is 10 inches. And this can be used as a self-defense tool to ward off wild animals or human attackers. It also, because of its size, it still can be used as first aid, cutting a bandage or splints to apply to a wound if necessary. But most of all, you can use this to build a shelter, cut wood and other materials such as bank line, paracord, natural rope from a tree. And speaking of tree, you can use this to remove tree sap. Now the tree sap can be used as food or to heal a wound. And one of the most important things is that this knife can be used for hunting. You know, you can attach this to a pole and you could theoretically use this as a spear. You can use it to skin an animal, and you use it to skin an animal and cut through the joints of the animal and prepare the meat for cooking if necessary. And you can use it as a tool as a screwdriver. You know, if something is loosened, you can use this to tighten it up. So I think it's very important to have a knife in addition to a hatchet. These are the cutting tools, and these are most important for me. Now, the third cutting tool that I will always have with me in the bush is a saw. The saw itself can be used to cut wood to a precise length. And I prefer at a minimum a saw with at least a 10-inch blade. I have cut logs as thick as 12 inches with this saw. The saw can also be used to make notches so that you can put two pieces of wood flush together. So these cutting tools, one of the 10, for me, one of the most important is the cutting tools. Now, I will always have those 3 items with me, whether I am going to the bush for 1 hour, 1 day, or 2 days. But there is also backup items. For example, I always carry a Scandinavian grind knife, and this is a perfect knife for carving. And again, as I said, this is a backup knife. You can use this for making tent stakes, pot hangers, anything. You can even fell a tree with this. So, and the next backup is a Commando Saw. I always believe in having a backup saw as well as a backup knife. Now, this Commando Saw is nothing more than a piece of wire with 2 handles. And it does in fact work very well. This Commando Saw can also be used on making a bow saw. You get a piece of green wood, slightly bend it, put notches in each end, and attach each notch to each end, and you now have a bow saw. But I have used this before just as a test, and it does work well. So guys, of the 10 C's, what is the most important 10C for you? So again, the 10 C's: cutting, having something to cut with. I prefer a hatchet, a saw, and a knife, preferably large ones. Combustion, is that more important to you than a cutting tool? Cordage, you need the cordage to make your shelter. How about your container that you can put all your supplies in, or you can just use it as a canteen, as well as your coverage? I still think the cutting tool is the most important for me. And when we come into the second category of the C's, the candle. Of course, we gotta have light, and we can use the candle in and of itself. The candle can even provide heat as well as light. But when we say candle, I am basically looking at a candle itself and a headlamp. And then, how about the cloth, the chamois, the bandana? It's very important, but still the cutting tool is more important to me. Cargo tape. You know, again, use it to prepare some clothing. Your tarp, you can even use it as first aid or as a fire starter. Your compass, your directions are very important. And your canvas needle. Now, something else I want to tell you about, again, my favorite, the cutting tool, is a combination tool or a multi-tool. This one has a lot of tools on it. It has a blade, a Phillips screwdriver, a pair of scissors, and a file. That's on one side. On the opposite side, it has a serrated blade, a flathead screwdriver, as well as a bottle opener, another flathead screwdriver, and a saw. So, those are my preference when it comes to cutting tools, and I think all bushcrafters should find out what works for them the best, and a lot of it depends on your level of skills. But again, for me, I will always have the hatchet or a machete. These will serve as my chopping tools. My knife, preferably large, preferably at least 10 inches, anywhere from 7 to 10 inches. And a saw. Preferably this saw, but I could even have one that is larger. A smaller backup knife for carving for precision. and a multi-tool. So guys, again, I'm speaking in theory because I am not in the bush, so I cannot do practicality. But find out what works best for you. Practice with those tools, because I think, in my opinion, the cutting tools are the most important, because again, it's going to allow me to build a shelter. It's going to allow me to harvest wood and process wood. It's going to allow me to make tinder. I will always have a striker. It's going to allow me to make a fire, dig a pit for the fire, process food, cook with it, a whole host of items. So guys, let me know in the comment of the 10 C's, which one is the most important to you. So guys, thank you for coming. I hope I have imparted something, knowledge into you. So hit that like button, comment so that we can continue to learn from each other. Share this video out and subscribe to my channel, The Virginia Bushcrafter. Thank you. I appreciate your support.